Okay, so then we wanted to talk a little bit about metadata tools. We said that software generates most of this stuff for you, but obviously there's some human input that's necessary, and so you need to have a tool that helps you output these formats. How many people here are ArcMap users? Most? Not most? Okay. So all ArcMap people have access to our catalog, and that would be the tool in that environment. But there are also many standalone metadata tools for people who don't like our catalog or maybe need to do things that our catalog doesn't help them do. So this list comes from Jackie again, because one of her presentations is actually comparing all the tools. So second blue box in the presentation here is a link to Jackie's presentation that goes through the pros and cons of all these tools. There's a few on this list that she doesn't cover. She doesn't cover, for some reason, the EPA metadata tool. I don't know why. Maybe in a next generation version of her tool. And she doesn't cover, oh, I thought I had OpenGeoPortal on here, but I don't. So the way these tools are arranged, you draw a line across here, halfway down the first list. These are pretty much desktop tools or tools that can plug into ArcMap, for example. They'll stand alone and work on your desktop. Below that line are online tools. So you can, Mermaid is a hosted tool that's at NOAA, and you can go to Mermaid and build a record in Mermaid. GeoNetwork and GeoPortal are tools where they basically can run your own metadata server. But all these tools allow you to build a record from scratch if you needed to, or edit an existing template, or as you go down the list, I think you may have more options to do bulk metadata kinds of things. Down at the bottom of the list, for people who are really into their XML, there are actual XML editors, and these become useful mostly when you need to do bulk transforms of data while leaving it in XML. They are also helpful, though. I had a conversation with Allison earlier today where you can open an XML record in any text editor. But if you open it in any text editor, it'll pretty much all look the same. It'll come in, open up in black and white. If you open it in a code editor, it'll probably come up in multiple colors, which is kind of helpful for looking at and seeing the different sections. But for going beyond just color coding, an XML editor can actually open the file, see what the dependencies are that are listed at the top of the file, and can actually tell you if there's something wrong with your file. It will read through your file and tell you it's breaking on line 135. So that can be handy if you're trying to figure out why something is breaking. And there have been a couple times when we've had records that Todd couldn't figure out what was going on. When opening it in Oxygen has been helpful. It'll point you right to the broken line. Okay. So, I guess the next thing we're talking about is it looked like from that slide earlier today that a lot of people are interested in that metadata column, which I don't know if it was everybody except USGS, and they practically invented metadata. So everybody needs help in some way. I don't know how many of those people were starting from scratch versus, like you mentioned, further down the list, there's more advanced needs. But if you're starting from scratch, the easiest way to get your earliest bang for your buck is to start by thinking about documenting the data you use most, that's most important to your organization. Because you're going to know it the best, and you're probably going to know what other people need to know about it. So it's where you have all the value to add. If you're doing it because you're joining a community like this, you should reach out to Todd or other people in the network that have organizations like yours and say, okay, well, how did you document your metadata? How did you document your data? What was hard? What was easy? And pick up the standards that sound like they will work for you. So if you think your organization can get by with a very easy, simple standard, that's great. If you have very specific things that people always need to know every time about your data, you might need one of the more complicated formats. So start from a standard that sounds like it's appropriate to you, and then be as complete as you need to be for the intended purpose. So if the intended purpose is discovery, submitting to a system that allows you to search up 4 things, then you need to have those 4 things filled out. But if the intended purpose is documentation, then you have a whole, you bring a whole lot of other requirements on yourself. So you need to think through what is the intended purpose? Why do I need to write this metadata in the first place? Is it a grant requirement? Is it a goodwill thing within my network? Think through what the intended purpose is, and then be good at those things. If you have a lot of data to document, use templates, because they will, whenever possible, use templates, because they will help you reduce the boring, repetitive work. It's like anything else that you might use a template for. The template holds the things that always stay the same, and then you only need to edit the things that are different. And then as you sort of dip your toe into the deep water of beginning this process, you know, create a few records, evaluate how it went, submit them to a search system, and then look for your stuff and see how they look when they come back to you. If your stuff looks the way you want it to look, if it's presenting your organization and your data well, then you probably did a good job with your metadata. If it comes back and it's unintelligible to somebody outside of your organization, then there's probably things you need to fix about your process. If fields are blank, if the title doesn't read well, for example. Because in general, your users will have a good discovery experience if you filled out the information, the relevant information well.